What's up, gorgeous? I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the Fierce Framework podcast, where we talk about becoming fierce through messy action, baby steps, and cultivating confidence. I'm your host, Mary Beth. I'm a business coach with a passion to see women breaking out of the mold society tells us we're supposed to fit into and to start living life more on our own terms. I believe the world benefits when women are living lives that we're lit up about and we're pursuing a purpose that makes us feel fulfilled. My goal with this podcast is to share inspiration, stories of other entrepreneurs just like you, and practical tools and tips to help you become fierce in your business. If that sounds good to you, you're going to love this episode. Let's get down to it. What's up, gorgeous? Welcome to another episode of the Fierce Framework. I am so glad you're here. Today, I want to talk about my trip to Belize. So, just a few weeks ago, I got back from spending 3 weeks in Belize, and it was such a gift, just absolutely incredible, and I absolutely loved it. Had such a great time. I actually just finished a podcast interview with one of my friends where we talked all about it. So that will be coming out soon. And today I wanted to focus on a little bit more of the process. Okay. So I think that there's this idea a lot of the time that if we're going to chase our dreams, it looks like dropping everything, like burning your life down and starting completely over, like with zero regard for society or structures or expectations or anything. And honestly, that's a good fit for a lot of people. And if that's you, I fully support it. I am not here to try to slow anyone down. I'm actually super stoked. I just started following Sailing with Phoenix on TikTok. He is all over TikTok right now, and I love it. It's he's like documenting his journey of quitting his corporate job and sailing around the world on a sailboat. And so if you're looking for like inspiration to just up and leave and really give yourself a fresh start and go chase those dreams, I highly recommend following him. He's super relatable and he does share a lot about his journey and how just complete mindset shift. So, definitely not hating on that or trying to discourage anyone from doing that. If you've been listening to the podcast, I have several episodes where I've been having conversations with my friend Lisa, who also quit her job and has been just like being and living her life for these past months and absolutely loving it. The people I do want to speak to are more those people who aren't quite ready to like completely quit their life and start over. And one of the things that kind of sparked this in my mind is I was talking to my coach about this because coaches need coaches. And we were talking about like how sometimes it feels like you're like not doing it right if you kind of go slow or if you're taking baby steps or like building a runway before you just up and quit. And I'm not trying to say that like the people I referenced earlier didn't build a runway or didn't have any forethought. I'm not trying to compare at all. I'm just kind of speaking from this perspective, like especially like things you can hear online or advice, like depending on where they're coming from, can make it seem like if you're really all in, if you're serious, then you'll just like burn down your life and you'll just like move to a beach in Costa Rica and just completely start over with the backpack on your back and like no strings back to your old life and only forward and never looking back. And so sometimes it can feel like if you're more like a gradual person who's like looking to slowly kind of change things, or maybe you have to, right? Depending on your situation or like your family dynamic. If you like have kids, pretty hard to just like drop everything and go start over. Um, so, all that to say, the people I'm speaking to today are more of the people like me who are kind of moving gradually. So, we are aware of our dreams, we're working towards them, we're building a foundation, like we're in that preparation phase, which I mean, the people I referenced earlier had a preparation phase as well, right? So, again, not trying to like diss or throw shade or even really compare, just want to be clear like who I'm speaking to because there are it works differently for different people. You know, sometimes like some people, the only way, like, or the best way for them to be all in on their dreams is to just completely drop everything and start fresh. So I love that for them. Couldn't be me because the way my anxiety is set up, but you know what I mean. So, for example, I am still in corporate, so I'm a corporate girly. I am working on like paying down my debt, getting my finances together so that I'm not, so that I kind of like need less is the goal to like be a little bit more minimalist in my lifestyle so that I have more flexibility in the future to kind of jump around or try different things. And then at the same time, I'm building my coaching business, right? That I'm always talking to you about because I love coaching my other little ADHD entrepreneurs because we make the world a better place. So I'm doing both at the same time, kind of laying a foundation and building a runway to transition from corporate to working for myself full time. And I know a lot of us are in that boat and prefer that approach of kind of like laying a foundation, building a runway, and then kind of transitioning a little bit more gradually. So, if that's you, you're my people, especially for today. And so I want to talk about kind of the using my trip to Belize as like an example of some of the things that or like the way what that looked like for me, basically. So there are several factors, right? One of them being like the fact that I took 3 weeks off. Like that is a big deal in the corporate world because, like I said, I'm still in corporate. And the standard, excuse me, especially for my company, is 2 weeks. So, like, for me, that's a baby step. We're stepping outside of the norm. One of the goals is A, to not be in corporate at all. But one of like my dreams that I would love to do, because I live in Colorado and it is beautiful here. We get a lot of sunshine, which I love. The summer's gorgeous. I hate the cold, though. I hate the cold so much. And it does get cold here. Okay. Like, so, one of my dreams is to be able to like leave for several months or like a few months during the winter and just be somewhere else, like Belize, somewhere beautiful, sandy, Caribbean. Okay. So, even though like a 3 week vacation, a 3 week trip is a big deal and a goal in and of itself. It's also like a stepping stone for me on the way to a bigger goal, right? And so I want to talk about that because I think it's so important to highlight and share and like discuss the journey and what steps look like to get to a bigger goal because it's so easy to like talk about how hard things are at the beginning and then it's really easy to find like a bunch of success stories and it's like oh they made it and but I feel like what's talked about less often is the process and like the journey and the in between of those baby steps going from your standard 2 week vacation to the end goal of like at least a couple months off. So let's get into it. So one of the big things is just changing my mindset around that and like giving myself permission to ask for that much time. I also want to caveat this is a super like privileged conversation, like period. Okay, so there is that. I'm aware of that. Not everybody can do this. And I'm not saying that like everybody should, um, or that it was like easy or even accessible for a lot of people. So I definitely want to acknowledge like there's a lot of privilege just in this conversation and in this story that I'm sharing. And also acknowledge that there are other people like with my same privilege. And so it might be a smaller like niche, right? But I absolutely believe that like I'm not the only one who can do this type of thing. And so I do believe that like there's still benefit in talking about it, even though just having this type of opportunity does include a lot of privilege. So if you're still with me, thank you so much. I appreciate you listening. So one of the big things was like just that transition in mindset and then the logistics of getting 3 weeks off, right? So again, privilege. I work from home. I am a recovering workaholic, so I have stockpiled a fair amount of PTO. And we're just coming off our busy season. So my corporate job is super busy from like November to February. And I usually just kind of like buckle down, nose to the grindstone, and bang it out. Like I work more when we're busier because like I have a lot of flexibility in my job and like to me it just makes more sense. So I again like I've stockpiled it because I get to work from home, so like I have a lot more flexibility and I don't have to like take PTO if I have a cold and feel good enough to still work, which, work-life balance. If that's not you, I'm not throwing shade. That's just my recovering workaholic situation. And then, I mean, I haven't taken any PTO hardly for like the last few months because we've been busy and I was like, let's just knock it out. So, the fact that I have PTO, first of all, and then having that conversation with my boss. So, one of the things I'm learning is as I'm like having these conversations with my boss is I struggle to like have conversations with people in authority when I'm asking for something they don't want to give. And at first he did kind of like blow me off and he was like, well, 2 weeks is standard. And I was originally aiming for 4 because I was like, I want to take a month. And part of why I changed it was the cost of lodging, honestly, was like a little factor. Um, I haven't been the most financially responsible on this trip, but that was a factor. But the biggest thing was the flights. So I didn't want to be gone. We're getting real into the weeds here. I didn't want to be gone for a transition between months because again, like we're just super busy at work, and like this is talking this out is like showing me how much opportunity I still have for like mindset shifting in the future. Because I would love to get to the point where I'm like, I don't really care. I'm taking my PTO. But I'm still at the point, my team is really small too, and I love my team. So, whereas like I didn't want to be gone for the transition from 1 month to another. So I had like limited myself between like April like 2nd and 29th, because I didn't want to be gone for like the transition between March and April or April, May, because we tend to be get busier and there's like more high priority things that I didn't want to let fall between the cracks. So I limited myself and then I found direct flights from Denver to Belize, which blew my mind. And they were only on like Sunday and Saturday. So then I was like, okay. So that's part of where the 3 weeks came from. But regardless, initially I was talking to my boss about taking 4 weeks off, and he kind of like brushed it off and he was like, well, 2 weeks is standard. So anything else we'd have to see. And I'm very non confrontational. So I had to be like, so like can we see like what okay and like so what is the process to like see if the we can like get approval, and he was gonna like, oh, like you're gonna push the issue, and I was like, yeah. And so he was like, okay, well, I'd have to talk to my boss. And then like weeks later, right, did he? No. So then I had to follow up, which is not something I love doing, because then I'm like getting in my head about like, oh my gosh, I'm being pushy and like he's not gonna like me, and then we're gonna have like interpersonal issues like down the road, like da da da. And so that was something I had to work through as well. Like, okay, this is something I want to do, so I'm going to have these hard conversations. And I know to a lot of people, it probably sounds super silly, but for me, it was like growth and a step I needed to take to be like, all right, I found these flights. So it's 3 weeks now. So there's a little bit of a compromise, even though it had nothing to do with you. But I'm still wanting 3 weeks off, not the standard two. And to me, it mattered because like I wanted to really have a chance to experience somewhere else and experience like being there. And I was like, I want to be able to forget I have a corporate job for like a couple weeks, and 2 weeks just isn't enough. Like, plus if I'm buying fairly expensive plane tickets, like I want to be somewhere for a while. If I have to pay a bunch to like fly there and back, I want to be there for a while. Okay? So there's that. So then just like that, those things with the corporate world of like getting more than usual PTO at in a row, and then like having those conversations to my boss with my boss, excuse me, were important steps for me to take, And these are all like little baby steps that add up to where I'm trying to go in life, right? And they facilitate like what I was trying to do. Hey, so on this podcast, we're always talking about how to make progress towards your goals and reach your dreams. But what if you're stuck or you're not sure where to go next or you need some more support, right? Well, I am so excited to let you know that I have a couple of openings available for a free business strategy session. I know it's a mouthful, but what it is essentially a free coaching session with me. It's really an opportunity to get to know more about you and your business and where you might be stuck or needing some inspiration or a different perspective or some new insight or someone to bounce some ideas off of. And it gives us a chance to work together with no obligation from you, right? So you get that free session and then we both have a chance to see, like, does this feel like a good fit? Do we feel like we could benefit from continuing this type of relationship? And then of course, if we feel like it's right and we want to keep working together, I can send you a link for future coaching. But that first session is free for potential new clients. So if you've worked with me before, I'm sorry, I love you. It's not for you. We already did that. I can't wait to see you again. But potential new client doesn't mean that you have to buy anything. It's just someone who hasn't been my client before. So if you feel like you could benefit from an hour talking strategy, getting new perspectives, getting you unstuck and back to business, back to making money and on track to hit your goals, I'll include the link in the description so you can go ahead and get signed up for your free business strategy session so we can get you unstuck, inspired, and back to hitting those goals. All right, let's jump back into the episode. So another example of like how this whole trip is like an end goal in itself, of course, but also like a baby step in the larger scheme of things. This is my first solo international trip. And every time I say that, I like second guess myself because it just seems fake. But truly, so I've been on cruises before, which are technically international. I've been on cruises by myself before, but cruises are very like almost like sterile, like they're very contained and I have super high anxiety. So like when you're at a port, you stop on the cruise and you like stop at a port and you're there for a few hours, right? Just it's not worth it to me and how anxious I get to like really go out and like try to like get into the country and really explore and like really experience like the culture. So I do tend to stay more like in the port area that's like designed for the tourists, and like so yes, it's very kind of surface level. And like sterile keeps coming to mind. Like it's just very like contained and very, very touristy, obviously, right? Like and so yeah, doesn't really feel like international travel. But in my mind, I'm like, I've been to several places, but I've been to other countries like with people, right? So like boyfriend and I went to Jamaica. My ex-husband and I went to St. Lucia. And those were amazing trips. Um, but not by myself. So yeah, first international trip by myself. And so that's a big deal, right? Like that is a stepping stone. And coming back to the cruises, right? So the first cruise I went on was with a friend from one of my old jobs, and she just like brought she loved cruising. Loves. We're just not in close contact anymore. And so she just like brought it up in conversation. Was like, "Do you want to go with me?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." And so like that was a baby step towards this trip that I took years ago, right? And so I went on my first cruise with her, absolutely loved it. And then we did a cruise with a group of girls and ended up going to Belize. So I had been on a snorkeling excursion in Belize before, which is what even put Belize on my radar. Like I have no knowledge of Central America. I'm so sorry. My geography skills have, there's a lot of opportunity for me to learn about other places in the world. So, yeah, I like wasn't even aware of it before went. And again, while it was like that cruise experience, just very barely scratching the surface, it was absolutely gorgeous. And everyone we interacted with was so amazing. And she was actually looking at like considering buying property. And so we were kind of talking to one of the tour guides a little more targeted about like what does it look like to live here? Like what's it like? And So that was really cool. It also had another seed planted because I went on a cruise with my family and we were supposed to stop in Belize and I was really excited to go back and try to just like see more. But we actually got rerouted because of weather, so we couldn't go. So then that was like in my mind of like, I was supposed to go back and I didn't get a chance to go back and now I want to go back. So even the cruises, right, are like a baby step along this road. Another reason I kind of landed on Belize is there's no visa requirement for Americans. So just like lowering the barrier to entry, right? Like it just makes it easier. One less thing that like I had to figure out how to do. And so didn't have to worry about that. And the main language is English. So again, super accessible, didn't have to worry about a language barrier and just kind of things that like made it an easier baby step, right? Because like Mexico is definitely on the list. And again, like I've been to a couple places on cruises and I would love to get like more into Mexico and like stay there and be there for a while instead of like stopping for a couple hours and dipping out. Um, but like I'm building up to it, right? Because I'm like, ooh, I know a lot of people like speak English here, but my Spanish is so sad. So let me like give myself a little bit more time to work on my Spanish before I just like show up in Mexico. So like I'm talking about these things to help hopefully like show you you're allowed to like make things easier and make that baby step as small as possible, right? Like I didn't only go to Belize because it's easy, but those were like some nice to haves and some factors of like why I went to Belize first, like before I've stayed in Mexico, right? And yeah, and so then again, like researching, even my friend Shauna from Ignited Decisions, like she talks about this all the time, and I love it. Dipping a toe in is what she calls it, and it's kind of just like giving yourself a taste of what you want to do, whether that is allowing yourself to kind of like entertain a thought of like, okay, what would that look like? What do I want? What kinds of things would I want to experience on this trip or with whatever you're looking to do, right? And so even researching is like dipping a toe in and kind of getting more familiar. And so I did a fair amount of research just about Belize, and there's a bunch of different districts, and every like section, every district has its own like vibe, right? Like there are subcultures in every country. And so I was trying to get a better idea of like where in Belize would I want to go and like what area do I feel like the most drawn to, right? And so Key Cocker, tiny island. It's like part of Belize, but it's like an island off the mainland of Belize. And there's not even paved roads. Okay. It's tiny. It's very chill, very island vibes. Their motto is go slow. And so like the more I learned about it, I was like, oh, yes. And they have a fair amount of tourism there. Like it's one of the biggest drivers of their economy. And so I was like, okay, they're not gonna like that makes I kind of assumed like based on that, right, that they're like open to tourists and like that's okay. And like um yeah. So again, huge factor, right? And then just like learning more about the different districts and which one I felt was like the best fit was again another step, right? Like anytime you're looking to travel somewhere, you want to do some research and like know what to expect, especially if you have the privilege of options, right? Where you're looking to see like what do I want to experience? Especially if I'm looking to see like where could I spend 3 months of like my winter in Colorado? Like that's quite a bit of time. And so I want to make sure it's somewhere that like I really enjoy and the just the personal introspection, right? Of like, will I even like this? And so like that was a huge step for me as well of like the chance to kind of learn about myself. Like, will I get bored? Um, will I get sick of being like on a tiny island? Will I hate being in the heat? Like, you know? And so I stayed in a tiny home, Airbnb, because again, I wanted to get kind of more of a feel of like what is it like to like be here, like live here instead of like in a resort or something that was a little more and cost, of course. Um, yeah. So like part of these baby steps part of what is so important as well is what you learn about yourself and figuring out, because oftentimes like it's easy to get an idea in your head and to like think you like something or think you won't like something, right? But then once you actually show up and you try it and you're involved in it and you're like really getting into like whatever it is you want to try, that's when you get so much more information of like, do I act like, is this for me? Like, do I actually like this? Is this something I want to pursue? Or not so much? Like, is this a good time for me to start pivoting now? So that is a huge key in taking baby steps, is to learn and see like if this is something you even want. Because if you, it's easy to like put something on a pedestal and think you want it, right? Like people talk about that with like fame, right? Or money. Like you think you want it and you put it on this pedestal and you're like, that's what I want. And then you hear stories about people who like got all this money and hate it here. You know, you're like, I'm still willing to give it a shot. But like you hear those stories, right? And it's like, okay, well, it wasn't the money or it wasn't the fame. And they're actually looking for something else to fulfill them or like give them a purpose, right? And I think we do that as well. I think just as humans, right? And we put things on a pedestal, like being in a relationship or starting your own business, right? Like it is hard and you don't really know if you're going to love it or hate it until you're like actually experiencing some of those things that are key factors of what we think we want. So, yeah, I'm like being on a small island, it's small. I think it's like 5 miles long and like 1 mile wide at like the biggest part. Where I was like closer to the north part of the south side of the island, and it was like definitely not a mile wide. It was like maybe zero point 0.2. I don't know. It was like very narrow towards the top. So like, and my sister lives in a small town in Colorado though, and I've always told myself, like, I just don't think I could do like small town vibes. But then I was thinking about that with this, and I was like, I mean, it's a tiny island. So isn't that like small town vibes? Like, and then am I gonna get tired of there being like sand and dirt everywhere? Because like there's no paved roads, there's not like sidewalks, everything's just sand and dirt. So those were the biggest like factors that I just wanted to share from my own personal story of what those baby steps looked like for me, and hopefully like you're able to kind of pull some things for your own story to like tie into that. And I also just wanted to like remind us and paint the picture that even something as huge as like being able to go somewhere else for 3 weeks and experience a different place, that is an end goal in itself, absolutely. And something that monumental can still be a baby step towards your even bigger goals. So I also want to encourage anyone who's not ready to like burn down their life and move to Costa Rica full time and like rediscover themselves, right? You don't have to. You can find these milestones and these smaller goals that are along the journey that are going to get you where you want to go in order to end up. If maybe you do want to end up in Costa Rica, right? You can still take baby steps to get there. So, for those of us who are not ready to just take the leap, dive in, and completely start over, you are in good company. And there's plenty of opportunity to start taking those small steps and integrating that into your life, right? So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Like, okay, now that I'm back in Colorado, what are some things I learned and what are some things that I loved about being in Belize, about being on an island that made me feel more alive, that really like lit me up, that I can actually incorporate while I'm here. Right? So literally directly after this, the weather is beautiful. It's May. It's warming up in Colorado. The weather is absolutely gorgeous today, and I have a date with myself with a hammock, right? So I'm spending more time outside. Like that's one of the things I'm bringing with me. So you can build a runway, lay the foundation, and like gradually transition from where you're at right now to your dream life. And you're going to have several milestones along the way that are a big deal. where you're still not quite there yet. And that is normal. Like, I love that. Do that, celebrate those. And every time you hit like a goal or a milestone, take a second to reflect and figure out like, is there something I can bring with me to kind of elevate and enhance my everyday life? Like you go to a retreat, you're up on the mountaintop, right? And you like it's everything's great and you just love it, and then you come back to real life and like back to reality, and you're like, oh, this kind of sucks. I had to remind myself when I came back because I was like low-key sad when I came back. I had to remind myself like I loved my life here before I left. Yes, I have dreams and goals and things that I want to change, but I loved my life before I left. So when I came back and I was all like sad and like I hate it here, I had to remind myself of that. Like, okay, you can go back to the life you loved because you did, even though you know there's better, right? But you don't have to go back. I'm back here in Colorado. Yes, I'm back in my corporate job. My PTO is over, right? But there are things that I learn about myself that I can still keep like discover and dig into and cultivate. And there are things that like words are hard. There are things that I love that I can also do here. I spent a lot of time outside, a lot of time in nature. And while I don't have a beach and an ocean here, we have beautiful nature here. So reminding myself, like, what can I bring with me? I watched so many sunsets and a couple sunrises, and I can do that here as well. So I want to encourage us with that also, to be aware and like open-minded, to like be cognizant of what vacation things or what mountaintop moment experiences like can I bring with me? Right? You went to a yoga retreat, you absolutely loved it, you miss it, like you wish you could just live on a yoga retreat, right? What can you bring with you? Can you do yoga in the morning? Like, can you do it outside? Like, what were those factors that you love so much that you can bring back home and incorporate into your everyday life to enhance your life and to start living the things you dream of in this current moment before you're there? Thank you so much for listening. I just love the opportunity to share this with you. I hope you found some things that were valuable that you can kind of take from it and apply to your own journey. But overall, I really my main goal here is to encourage you. If you're one of those gradual girlies, I am right here with you and you're gonna get there. Okay. So keep taking those baby steps and set those milestones, like the little mile markers. What are those kind of bigger baby steps that are those goals that we can really look towards and get excited about? And then once you've accomplished one of those, how can you learn from that and glean things to incorporate into your everyday life so that every day is just more enhanced and closer to the dream life that you want to live? All right. I love you so much. You're doing so great. I will see you soon. Until then, keep becoming fierce. Thank you so much for joining me on this past episode of the Fierce Framework, where we talk about becoming fierce through taking a messy action, baby steps, and growing your confidence. I'm your host, Mary Beth. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you got a lot out of the episode. If you're looking for a little bit more, make sure that you are subscribed to my newsletter. I drop a new email every week. I'm also on social media platforms at the Fierce Framework, and I do have some coaching spots opening up. So if that's something you're interested in, you want to connect on that, feel free to drop me a DM or check out the link that I've included in the description. I can't wait to see you next time, and until then, keep becoming fierce.